Well, good afternoon, Derby and bourbon fans. I was just saying to my good friend, Woodford Reserve Master Distiller Chris Morris, I feel pretty lucky because this is twice in a week I've gotten to speak with you about about Derby and bourbon.
Yeah, Tom, we would catch each other on the backside of, of next week, of course, prior
Right.
to the race. And then you invariably will drop by the $1,000 mint julep tent. We'll have a nice little visit, little sip, and
That's right.
bump into each other here or there. So this is like old times.
It feels like we're actually at Derby, which it's always good to see. And I'm sipping on a little double oaked here, and I
I'm
also have
joining you with
my
some Woodford.
excellent. So cheers. A toast to
Cheers.
you. We're going to make sure that everybody feels like it's Derby next week. You teased for it a little bit last week with us on our Bourbon Blog Live. Tell us about this Derby at home. It's very exciting.
Yes, it's going to be really exciting because we're teaming up with Churchill Downs, our partner, to bring a virtual derby to everyone. Then followed by the network will be airing some previous derbies, derby coverage, which will be so much fun, and that'll be, of course, national television. But we're going to be the lead into this, and it's going to be myself and our assistant master distiller Elizabeth McCall coming from our homes. We're not going to be at the track. We're not going to be
Right.
together, and we're going to be talking about the connection and the history of the development of the bourbon industry and thoroughbred horse racing in Kentucky. A fabulous story. We're going to talk about the origins of the mint julep and making mint julep. We're going to make some mocktails. At least Elizabeth will be making some mocktails. And we're going to talk about the old fashioned, which also has some connections definitely to Louisville and to some personages who were involved in horse racing, and a few other things if I could recall. But it's going to be a nice, just casual conversation, having some fun, making sure that people don't forget that May 2nd is Derby Day,
Right.
even though Derby has been rescheduled for September 5th.
It's rescheduled. So really, a week from tomorrow. I mean, this would be Derby. A week from today would be Derby Eve. Next week would be Derby
Yes.
Eve. A lot of
This would
parties will
be
be
this would
happening.
be Oaks Day, and you're dressed appropriately with the pink. I
Right. This
should
would be
I should have pink on, but this would be Oaks Day.
This
Yes.
would be the Oaks Day. So this is very exciting that you all are bringing Derby to people's homes because we're going to miss it. We're going to miss seeing you and all our good friends at Woodford and Churchill Downs, but we're going to feel like we are going to be part of this because we're going to be hearing your presentations. What are you planning on talking about yourself, Chris?
Well, I'm going to talk about the history of the industries, both the thoroughbred horse racing industry, breeding industry primarily, and bourbon. Elizabeth will talk about a commonality in terms of a resource that the two share, which is limestone water, and the
Right.
impact it has on both. I'll take us through the mint julep and the old fashioned, and Elizabeth will do in the mocktails. And I might even be making a Woodford Spire for us to
Oh,
enjoy as well.
very nice. And again, for those of you just joining us, we're talking some big Derby news that's just been announced. We are live with my good friend Woodford Reserve Master Distiller Chris Morris. If you have any questions, as you know, on Bourbon Blog Live, just ask them down below, tweet back to us, or ask them down below on YouTube or Facebook. Now, we know the history, well, a little of the history of mint juleps are very important to Kentucky Derby. As we said, we always visit you with your $1,000 mint julep, and we'll be
Yeah.
doing that again in September. But the old fashioned, I mean, that's a drink that in recent, the last 10, 15 years has made a huge comeback. More and more people trying different variations on them. What's the just the brief, kind of give us a tease forward of what you're going to talk about on the old fashioned.
Well, it certainly has become a very popular drink, especially on the international scene. I'm still an old-fashioned Manhattan guy, not an old. I'm a Manhattan guy. I love a Manhattan, and now everybody's all about old-fashioned, which is fine. Again, as we discussed earlier, you got to make the drink according to your own preferences. I tend to see too many old fashions as being too sweet for my palate. And that doesn't mean they don't taste great, but I'd just rather not be that sweet.
Right.
So that's where I tend towards the Manhattan. But it's an established fact that nobody knows exactly whoever created the old fashioned, because it's an old fashioned drink. And the Pendennis Club here in Louisville never has taken credit for creating the old fashioned in approximately 1881. as many bartender guides do. But what it looks like the Pendennis Club did was give it its current name, the Old Fashioned Cocktail, because it's a sling. I mean, it's a colonial drink. It dates back into the 1700s, so it's an old fashioned drink.
Right.
And according to story, again, there's no documentation, but this story's been handed down for years, that the famed horseman and distiller James E. Pepper had the drink at the Pendennis Club. He was from Lexington, and he liked it. And he said, "What is this?" And the bartender said, "It's an old-fashioned drink." And on a trip to New York at the old Waldorf, he asked for it, and the bartender, I guess, said, "What are you talking about?" "Well, here, let's make it." And from New York, it traveled around the world. Now, what's the connection with Derby? Well, Colonel Pepper was born at Woodford Reserve. The Pepper home is still standing. We own the home he was born in. That's the Pepper family residence, because, of course, our distillery started as the Pepper family, then the Oscar Pepper family distillery back in 1812. So he was literally born about 200 yards from the Woodford Reserve distillery. And he went on to become a noted horseman. He had the favorite in the first Kentucky Derby, which, typical of favorites, did not win. Isaac Murphy, the famed jockey, was his jockey. And he did eventually have 2 Kentucky Oaks winners, both named after his sisters, both of whom were born at Woodford Reserve. So there's that nice little tie-in there.
That's incredible. And what a beautiful place. I remember a few years ago, you and I were there for some type of an event where the Old Fashioned was celebrated, and just to know the history, to know that it happened there in Louisville at the Pendennis Club, an amazing place. And really, they do make quite a good Old Fashioned there, don't they?
They do.
They know what they're doing there.
I've had a few.
That's good. So now we can. No, me too. I really like them, and they're so good with. We love making the Old Fashions with the double oaked, or the original Woodford.
Oh, yeah.
You actually did a video, which we talked about last week, but I'll mention it for those that haven't seen it. You did a TikTok video, which showcased a cocktail. We posted it there on YouTube as well. Really cool. It was set to a metronome.
Yes, that to me is a TikTok, TikTok, or a pendulum clock. And I thought, I could do the metronome much easier than the pendulum clock. But it was a lot of fun. A couple years ago, we had a live radio broadcast from the distillery during Derby week with one of the local radio stations, good friends of ours. And just spur of the moment, they said, we'd really like, they're talking to the control panel, or whatever you want to call it, the producer, I guess, back at the radio station itself, and it said, could you create a drink on the spot right now? We need a drink in the next segment. Like, create a drink. I'm not a bartender. But we had double oaked, and from Bourbon Barrel Foods, we just received a new sugar, bourbon smoked sugar. Matt Jamie burns Woodford Reserve used barrel staves and smokes this sugar. It's awesome. It's smoky and it's caramelly.
It's nice stuff.
Yeah. So I thought, Old Fashioned, double oaked, smoke. So I just whipped up, using that sugar, a double oaked smoked Old Fashioned. And it was maybe the best Old Fashioned in the history of the world. It was really good. Garnished with the Woodford cherry, of course, from Bourbon Barrel Foods, and using our sweet aromatic bitters, the Woodford Reserve bitters. So it was all Woodford Reserve. It was just tremendous.
That's amazing. So it had that smoked nature to it. That's really good.
Yeah. You get that rich sweet aromatic character of Woodford Reserve double oaked, and the wood character. You add the smoke. I mean, it's almost like a liquid s'more in the glass. It was just tremendous.
That is incredible. So you probably proved to yourself you are more of a bartender than you realized.
I probably would have won all the awards that year if I'd entered it in any competition. No, it was good. Hats off to the professionals. They're the best, but this one was pretty good. That's
amazing. So we're going to be hearing from you and Elizabeth McCall that day. We're putting the schedule up on bourbonblog.com. Some former horse races. I even think NBC is going to be airing the American Faro race, some really exciting races, and there's going to be a virtual for those of us that are craving those 2 minutes, the best 2 minutes in sports. There's going to be a virtual horse race that's going to be shown, and also there's going to be some donations made. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yes, certainly. There's a matching donation of up to $1 million. So hopefully, and I don't understand all the mechanics yet, but people will be allowed to bet on that race, that virtual race, or however it's constructed, and up to $1 million in bets will be collected. So there's a total of at least $2 million donation that'll go to charities impacted by, of course, the COVID virus epidemic. So that'll be great if we can raise some money for good causes.
Well, and Woodford Reserve and Brown-Forman, you all have done such a great job. You've already, and just right after this, this COVID was affecting the bartenders, you all already began up making pretty substantial donation to help the bartenders.
Yes, we've made a monetary donation of $1 million, and we have been producing hand sanitizer, not for sale, but donating it to hospitals and certain organizations, the first responders, such as the first responders in Woodford County, where our distillery is located, and in other places. And then donating meals, and across the country, as we just talked about, Tom, our salespeople, our local marketing people are working with local charities to help feed the hospitality industry who are unemployed currently. So this continues to this very moment. I just saw come across our emails this morning, yet another market activating a charity to help a local cause. So, and the industry as a whole is responding like this. It's just not specifically Brown-Forman or Woodford Reserve. It's many companies. So I think it speaks highly of our industry as a whole that we're all stepping up and just trying to help out where we can.
It really does. Absolutely well said, Chris. It's a wonderful industry, and we're so glad to see what you all have done and so many other distilleries. And it's so exciting that Kentucky Derby at Home will help us really experience that fun nature of Derby at home. And again, if you're watching this live on any of the properties, please do share this video. We want this news to be out there. We're putting the schedule up on what Kentucky Derby at Home will look like on bourbonblog.com, and certainly follow our friends there on Woodford Reserve too, because you are going to be having a lot of great content to help us feel in the spirit, as you always do in the coming days, right?
It's going to be exciting. I haven't had a coat and tie on for I don't know how long. So you're always very smart looking. So I'll have a Derby attire. Elizabeth will have Derby attire. We'll just pretend it is Derby Day, of course. But It's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully it'll help people forget what's going on for a moment. Not that we want to forget, but to have a nice time and hopefully raise money for good causes.
No, absolutely. We're looking forward to that. And then we'll see you in September. I guess one thing I'm thinking about is, what will you, we're obviously going to enjoy watching the Derby at home with you, but what are you going to miss most about May and, about next week and just not being there until September?
Oh, of course. It's one of the fun things that you and I have talked about and been involved with is talking about the $1,000 mint julep program, and it's ready to go, but it's been, of course, postponed until September when people can come to the track and actually buy the $1,000 mint julep. So we've had to put that program on delay, and that's what I really miss most, because it's so exciting, it's so fun, and this year it was going to be, I think, really neat. Not that previous years weren't neat, but this is going to have a special moment we're celebrating, and we'll just have to wait.
It'll be exciting to hear what that news is, what the recipe is. We'll be hearing that as time unfolds, and we're looking forward to Kentucky Derby at Home, a virtual Derby experience next week. Be sure you visit bourbonblog.com to learn more about all the great things Woodford, Churchill Downs have planned for us. Until then, we'll be enjoying some Woodford, and I know that there may still be some of these Woodford Reserve Derby bottles out there with this. It actually says May 2nd on there, Chris. So
yes,
we know they always are collectors, but this will probably be even more of a collector, right?
I think so. This is the Derby bottle that has the date that didn't happen. So I think that's very collectible.
The day that didn't happen. Only one other time in history has this happened. What year was that in again? This was
That was 1945 when,
1945.
as we were ending the Second World War, the government asked for the Derby to be pushed back for various logistical reasons, and the Derby was run in June in 1945. So this again, every Derby is history, and this is certainly another historic moment within those. Only the second time in 146 years that the Derby has not been run on the first Saturday in May.
So we'll see you in September, if
I
not
look
before,
forward to
Chris.
it. Yes.
And thank you for taking a few minutes to chat with us again here on bourbonblog.com live. And hey, well, we always say Happy Derby, so we can still say it. This
We
time
sure
it's Happy
can.
Derby at home. Happy Derby, Chris.
Happy Derby, everyone. Thank you, Tom.
Happy Derby. Cheers. All right, 1 second.